The young scholar's question hung in the air like smoke from a discharged pistol. We were gathered in a Basel drawing room, professors, their wives, respectable merchants, and he had asked, with complete sincerity, whether Christian morality truly served human flourishing. Before he could elaborate, I watched the transformation ripple through the room. Professor K's fork paused halfway to his mouth. Frau M's face tightened, her eyes narrowing by perhaps a millimeter, but I saw it. Young T shifted his body away, creating distance without consciously choosing to. The host cleared his throat and introduced a new subject. Within 5 minutes, conversation had moved to safer territory. The weather, the new railway connection to Turin, anything but the dangerous thought that had been spoken aloud. That evening, I heard the young scholar condemned. Arrogant, they said, dangerous, lacking proper humility. Notice, not one person addressed his actual question. Not one attempted refutation. Only moral denunciation, as if he had committed obscenity rather than inquiry. I have witnessed this scene 1,000 times, in various forms across 2 decades. Each time I understand more clearly what I initially missed. This is not intellectual disagreement. This is the body protecting itself against mortal threat. The herd knows in its bones what it dare not admit in its thoughts. Watch what occurs when genuine questioning appears. A man dares to question what others hold sacred, and before he completes his thought, the atmosphere transforms. Faces tighten, bodies withdraw, eyes narrow with something deeper than disagreement, a visceral recoil identical to how weak eyes shrink from harsh sunlight. This is not reasoned opposition. This is the body protecting itself against mortal threat. I observed a young scholar question whether Christian morality truly served human flourishing. He spoke carefully, logically, yet within minutes, conversation turned elsewhere. This evening I heard him condemned as arrogant and dangerous moral categories deployed as weapons, not intellectual engagement. Learn this diagnostic skill. Observe automatic bodily responses when you question sacred beliefs. The immediate tightening of posture, narrowing of eyes, changes in breathing, these reveal the herd's threat response before conscious thought engages. Every society divides ideas into questionable and unquestionable territories. Understanding this transforms how you interpret rejection. You stop taking social hostility personally. You recognize it as immune response to foreign presence, no more personal than fever eliminating infection. Society has perfected a cunning trick, celebrating the appearance of critical thought while destroying its reality. Universities teach critical thinking as technique for solving approved problems, never for questioning foundations. I watched it during my Basel professorship. Eager students arrived questioning everything. By graduation, they possessed impressive skills but carefully avoided dangerous implications. One brilliant student shifted from radical questions to safer textual analysis. His committee praised his maturation. I recognized it as castration. The machinery operates through credentialing that rewards conformity, publication systems filtering dangerous ideas, social networks isolating genuine questioners. Universities grant credentials for mastering approved knowledge, not for questioning foundations. Examine your own intellectual development honestly. Which of your opinions would be acceptable in polite company? Which would cause uncomfortable silence? If all your thoughts fall in the first category, you have been domesticated. You now distinguish between performing criticism, what society rewards, and genuinely questioning what society punishes. The herd does not fear truth from stupidity, but from wisdom. Most humans survive only through collective delusions, that their lives possess inherent meaning, that their moral system reflects objective reality, that their society progresses toward something better. A colleague at Basel began applying critical methods to biblical texts. He discovered contradictions, forgeries, human rather than divine origins. Intellectually, he handled this brilliantly. Psychologically, he deteriorated rapidly. Within a year, he could barely function. He had destroyed the meaning structure supporting his existence without possessing the constitution to survive in the void. The herd was right to fear what he had done. Before destroying someone's illusions, ask whether they possess the constitution to survive without them. Most do not. You cannot teach someone to breathe thinner air. You can only kill them trying. Critical thought is not for everyone, not because of moral failing, but constitutional limitation. If you must destroy illusions, immediately offer new ground to stand on. Destruction without creation is not philosophy, but murder. Critical thought is not psychological skill, but physiological capacity. The herd animal possesses a nervous system adapted for survival. Through conformity, he physically experiences discomfort when opinions diverge from his group, pleasure when agreeing, anxiety when isolated. During my wandering years, I befriended a scholar who admired my independence. He attempted to emulate it, spending time alone. Questioning received wisdom. Within weeks, he became visibly anxious. Disturbed sleep, appetite loss, growing irritability. He could not function without daily social confirmation. I learned that constitution, not will, determines capacity for solitary thought. His body simply could not tolerate the isolation genuine thinking requires. Examine your own physiological responses to isolation and dissent. Do you feel energized by solitary thought or depleted? Does disagreement with your group cause merely intellectual concern or physical anxiety? These bodily responses reveal your constitution more accurately than self-concept. Understanding this physiological reality explains why logical argument never converts the herd. You cannot reason someone out of their body's requirements. Thought is not separate from physiology, it is physiology. I discovered this through suffering. My headaches, vision problems, stomach ailments taught me that I could only think clearly when my body permitted it. During my most productive period near Sils Maria, I noticed a precise pattern. Insight arrived only after my stomach settled, my head cleared, my body found equilibrium. When illness struck, which it often did, thinking became impossible. The body grants or withholds permission to think. The critical mind's capacity to digest hard truths parallels the digestive system's capacity to process difficult foods. This explains why most people avoid difficult thoughts. Their bodies cannot metabolize them without pain. Track the relationship between your bodily state and quality of thought. Map your body's optimal conditions for thinking and arrange your life accordingly. Begin treating thinking as bodily work requiring rest and recovery. When you encounter thoughts causing physical discomfort, pause and assess. Is this difficulty because the idea is false, violating reality, or true, violating preferences? Most humans are constitutionally incapable of thinking certain thoughts, regardless of intelligence or education. Their nervous systems cannot sustain the psychological isolation, tolerate the meaninglessness, or survive the anxiety that radical questioning produces. A brilliant student at Basel grasped every philological complexity I taught, but when implications questioned Christian foundations of morality, he became confused despite clear explanation. I tried multiple approaches. He understood words, but could not sustain the thought without immediate anxiety. His constitution rejected the idea like a body rejecting poison. Every person has thoughts, beyond which they cannot venture without psychological collapse. This ceiling is set by physiology, not intelligence. Learn to recognize when you reach someone's constitutional limit, further pressure harms rather than enlightens. Once you recognize constitutional differences, adjust communication accordingly. With herd constitutions, stay within their tolerable range, not dishonesty, but mercy. With rare critical constitutions, pursue truth wherever it leads. You now stop wasting energy on impossible conversions. Isolation is not punishment, but position. Once you understand that most humans cannot think your thoughts, loneliness becomes inevitable. But you can transform it from suffering into advantage. After leaving Basel, I wandered Italy and Switzerland for a decade. Initially, the isolation devastated me. No academic community, few who read my work, endless days alone. But gradually I discovered that distance from constant social noise allowed thinking impossible. Basel's academic environment. Isolation became observatory. What I had experienced as exile revealed itself as liberation. From heights of solitude, patterns invisible from crowded valleys become clear. Your exclusion from herd warmth is precisely what enables seeing the herd clearly. Systematically reframe each aspect of isolation from negative to positive. I am excluded becomes I am free from corrupting influences. This is not self-deception, but recognizing advantages previously invisible. Once you recognize solitude's advantages, you can choose it rather than merely suffering it. You no longer experience isolation as punishment, but as necessary precondition for clear thinking. The critical mind must develop capacity to trust his own judgment despite universal opposition. The herd animal draws certainty from consensus. When everyone agrees, he feels correct. But the critical mind must learn opposite response, to feel most certain precisely when alone in his conviction. While writing my critique of Christian morality, everyone told me I was wrong, destructive, perhaps mentally unstable. For months I doubted myself, but gradually I learned to use opposition as confirmation. Their hostility proved I had touched something they needed to protect. Learn to interpret others' reactions as data about their constitution rather than evidence about your correctness. If the herd responds with hostility to your idea, this often indicates you've hit truth they cannot tolerate. Develop criteria for evaluating ideas independent of social response. Does this thought explain phenomena better than alternatives? Is it logically consistent? Train yourself to assess ideas by these standards rather than by others' approval. You can now maintain conviction despite universal disagreement without either inflating into arrogance or collapsing into doubt. True critical minds are rare, perhaps one in thousands. But they exist, scattered across time and geography, and recognizing them is essential for survival. At a chance meeting in a Venice cafe, I encountered a Russian writer. Within minutes, I recognized the signs, the quality of his questions, the way he pursued implications without flinching, his visible relief at speaking without translating thoughts into acceptable language. For 3 hours we talked, and it felt like breathing after holding breath underwater. Such meetings are rare. I can count similar encounters on one hand across decades, but each proved my existence is possible. True critical minds display specific markers. They ask questions pursuing implications rather than seeking reassurance. They demonstrate physical ease with psychological isolation. They speak in their own voice rather than echoing fashionable opinions. Clever performers betray themselves through concern about how their radical views will be received, gravitating toward fashionable rebellions rather than genuine danger, withdrawing when real social cost appears. The rare few who pass your tests are precious. Cultivate these connections. While words deceive, the body testifies honestly. Constitutional differences manifest in observable physical patterns. How someone enters a room, where their eyes go first, how their posture shifts during uncomfortable ideas. During Basel faculty meetings, I would observe my colleagues' bodies before they spoke. Professor K's eyes always scanned the room. Before expressing opinion, his body needed social confirmation before his mind could complete a thought. Professor M maintained steady gaze, body-centered, speaking from internal conviction rather than group consensus. Years later, K had risen through careful conformity. M had been quietly dismissed. Their bodies had predicted their fates. Watch how someone enters public space. The herd animal's eyes immediately scan for familiar faces. His posture relaxes when he spots his group. The critical mind enters carrying his solitude. His awareness is internal first, present, idea that contradicts group consensus while watching bodies. The herd animal's body recoils before his mind engages. The critical mind's body leans toward challenge. The greatest diagnostic challenge is distinguishing genuine critical constitution from sophisticated performance. Many intelligent herd animals learn to mimic independence. They quote radical thinkers, express fashionable rebellions, perform the appearance of dangerous thought. A young intellectual in Turin's cafes cultivated reputation as dangerous thinker. He spoke provocatively, quoted forbidden authors. But I noticed his provocations always occurred in safe company where they would be appreciated, never in contexts where they might cost him. When genuine social consequences appeared, he quickly moderated. His radicalism required applause. Without audience approval, it evaporated. True critical minds continue thinking the same thoughts regardless of social context. Genuine critical minds think the same thoughts in all contexts alone. In hostile company, in supportive company, performers adjust their expressed views based on audience. Performers gravitate toward rebellions that increase social status in their chosen subculture. They adopt fashionable heresies while avoiding genuinely dangerous thoughts. Genuine critical thought almost always damages social position initially. Constitutional differences permeate every aspect of daily existence. How someone walks, reads, converses, even how they hold their body at rest. I watched two men reading in a Basel cafe. The first read quickly, constantly evaluating author against his existing opinions. The second read slowly, pausing frequently. He allowed the text to disturb him, to force reconsideration. His body showed discomfort, but he continued. After an hour, the first man finished unchanged. The second appeared transformed, troubled, provoked. Their reading styles revealed their constitutions. The herd animal walks in company or feels lonely, walking alone. The critical mind walks to think. Solitude is not absence of company, but presence of thought. In dialogue, the herd animal speaks to maintain social position, to receive validation. The critical mind speaks to clarify his own thinking, to test ideas under pressure. The herd animal reads to confirm what he already believes. The critical mind reads to be challenged and transformed. You now see constitutional differences everywhere in daily life. Morality is not discovery of objective good, but weapon by which the weak control the strong. When society declares critical minds arrogant, dangerous, lacking humility, these are strategic deployments of moral categories designed to neutralize threats. When I questioned Christian morality's foundations, I was not refuted with evidence, but condemned as immoral, dangerous to youth, arrogant. Notice, no engagement with my arguments, only moral denunciation. Trace any moral category to its origin and function. Ask whose interest does this morality serve? Christian morality elevates humility, accept group consensus. Compassion, do not question what comforts the weak. Equality, all souls equal. Every value serves to control the strong, protect the weak. Once you recognize morality as weapon rather than truth, you can evaluate it functionally. Does this moral system enhance or diminish life? When someone deploys moral condemnation against you, pause and analyze. What function does this moral category serve? You are now liberated from moral manipulation. The Enlightenment promised that reason would eventually triumph through education, that democracy would elevate discussion, that humanity progresses toward rational self-governance. This is fantasy. Reason is physiological rarity. Perhaps one in thousands possesses constitution for sustained independent thought. You cannot create rational society when vast majority operates by instinct, emotion, and conformity rather than logic. I observed Bismarck's new German Empire. Would unification and education produce rational citizenry? Instead, I watched mass manipulation through appeals to nationalism, militarism, prejudice. Universal education did not produce universal reason. It produced universal literacy that could be exploited by demagogues. Democracy assumes citizens capable of rational self-governance. But if most humans are constitutionally incapable of independent thought, Democracy becomes mechanism by which the irrational many suppress the rational few. Education systems are designed to domesticate, not liberate, to produce citizens capable of following instructions, not questioning foundations. The rare critical mind emerges despite education. Stop investing hope in political systems producing rational society. Having destroyed comfortable illusions, morality is objective. Society can be rational. Education produces wisdom. Progress is inevitable. You stand in the void facing meaninglessness. This is the crucial moment. Will you collapse into nihilistic despair, or will you achieve what I call amor fati, love of fate? At my lowest point, wandering Italy, ill and isolated, I faced the void completely. No God, no objective morality, no external meaning. For months I lived in this darkness. Then, slowly, a transformation. If existence has no given meaning, I am free to create meaning. If no external source legislates values, I become legislator. This terrible freedom, this burden of creating rather than discovering, transformed everything. The void became possibility. Once you recognize no external source provides values, you face terrible choice: collapse into nihilism or become value creator. This burden is heaviest thing you can bear, but also most liberating. Amor fati means saying yes to existence with such power you could will it eternally. Not blind optimism, but active affirmation. I make it good through my response. Could you will your life, with all its suffering, all its isolation, all its struggles to return eternally? This is the ultimate test. The free spirit who has climbed the mountain can say yes, yes, so powerful he could will it forever. Begin practicing value creation in your immediate existence. Rather than waiting for external sources to tell you what matters, decide, what do I value? Why? What kind of life do I want to create? You no longer need external validation, moral systems, collective delusions. You stand alone in the void, creating your own values. This is terrible freedom, but also the highest human possibility. You are no longer critical mind, merely destroying existing values, but creator, establishing new possibilities for human existence. The journey is complete, but never ends. You now possess understanding of why critical minds scare society, the path through isolation, the skills of constitutional diagnosis, and the ultimate purpose, value creation in the void. You are free spirit, value creator, legislator of new possibilities. The mountain is climbed, but offers no rest, only clearer view and higher peaks beckoning. Welcome to the heights. The work begins now.